Excellent. Oh, hi. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our very first PAME Code live interview. And today we are joined by Kris Ward. Basically, we're talking about how to go from overwhelmed to highly efficient. For the past couple of days here in the PAME Code Facebook group, we've seen many comments about people feeling overwhelmed about the amount of work that they need to do, and there's very little time and they need a little bit of help how to juggle, well, actually how to better manage their time and to reclaim their life. So thank you so much for such short notice, Kris. We managed to put this together very quickly, but before I put Kris on screen, let me just read her bio here. Kriss is a self-proclaimed recovering, stressed out small business owner. And she said that she was multitasking every second of the day. It was as if she was doing only one thing, and it felt like, she wasn't working hard enough. And due to the nature of her work, she worked with a lot of very successful people. And one day she noticed something. It completely changed her business and gave her back her personal life. Ooh. I'd like to learn more about that. So I'm going to put her on the screen now. Hi, Kris. How are you?
I am well, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm sure we'll learn so much from you. So tell us a bit more about yourself, and what do you do and why do you do what you do?
Well, I've had a small business now for about 12 years, and I will not live long enough to remember what those I will not live long enough to forget what those first few years were like, because it was just so crazy hectic, and I was multitasking on top of multitasking on top of multitasking. And it was just, it's not good for your health, it's not good for your sanity, it's not good for the people around you, and it's really not good for your productivity. And so, as you said, then one day, through luck, as I was working with some really successful people, I started to notice how they do things differently. So, and that changed everything for me. Everything.
Right. So you notice things that they do. I think I've noticed this in your book actually. You were talking about strugglers and successful people. I think that's a really good hook in your book. So tell me about what the strugglers do. Why do people feel overwhelmed?
Well, how I define in the book a struggler and successful person, it's really important, because a struggler can be financially fluent. They could be in business for 20 years. They could be doing, by sort of everyone looking from the outside in, they could be doing amazing. But the business is still running them. They're not running the business, and they're working long hours. They're working hard. Where my definition of a successful person is someone that has a company that they enjoy, and they're allowed within that company to have creative outlets and work on different projects, and they have a personal life. So those are the difference: a struggler versus a successful person. And what I noticed with the successful people is how they viewed time. I always thought that they had evenings and weekends and more time than I did, because they had achieved their success. They had more resources than I had, more money, more team, more assistants. But in fact, it was how they viewed time that got them to their success. So that's, I think, the biggest misconception for most people.
So what do you mean by how they view time? How do successful people view time?
Well, that's a really great question. So if your audience only learns one thing today, this is really, really important, and this is the part that most people don't get. We all focus on money, and we're always fearful, and I don't know anybody that's lived a full life that at some point hasn't worried about money or been concerned for the lack of money. But really, it's time that we have to really focus on, because money can actually come from anywhere. You can find 20 bucks in your pocket, you can get a refund on something, it can just pop up anywhere. But time, if I was going to live 1,000 years, I still have less time today than I, did yesterday. And we don't know where that time is going to stop. I'm not being morbid. I'm just saying it's a different concept than money. There's not the same abundance. So successful people are more focused about their time and how they utilize it and what it means to them. So that's a big part of it. Now, the second part, if I can dive into that, the second part that I see people do most often is let's say you have a bank account, and let's be silly and say your bank account has $100 in it, or let's say $1,000 in it, and your rent is $100, your car is another 100, your groceries is 100, and you know that everything that comes out of that bank account, like you don't get to say, oh well, you know what, I've got $1,000, but I don't have to count the rent because that comes out every month, so it doesn't matter. And most people, this is where they go wrong with their time, is they have this calendar, but they don't count the stuff that they think they do every day. So they think they have 8 hours worth of time to work on their stuff today, but in fact, they might only have 4. And so that's how they see time is really the biggest difference between a struggler and a successful person.
Right. That's very interesting. And actually, if I can just pick up something that, from what you said, you mentioned focus. And I think this is a really important thing that, a lot of people who struggle, they do juggle a lot of things and they try to multitask, but they sort of, struggle in terms of finding their focus. So do you have any techniques or strategies that could help people to focus or and manage all the things that they try to juggle?
That's a really great point. So what it comes down to is this. You need to look at your calendar like, I mean, it's your time bank account. And so, over the years, people were noticing that we started running our business different. And I was told that we ran it really efficiently. And that's what happened is a lot of our clients in our branding and marketing company would say, can you help me? You do this different. So we started working with people, and we've been doing that for a number of years as far as time management goes. And now we're taking it online so more and more people, can get access to it. And the biggest thing that we were teaching our clients is, as I said, when you look at the calendar, you have to say, okay, here's my blocks of time. What am I going to do from 9 to 10? What am I going to do from 10 to 11? And you have to put things in there. Like we were working with a jewelry shop client, and he said, well, I settle my books every day at 5. It takes about a half hour. He has to cash out the till and stuff. He said, so I do that every day. So it's not on my calendar, but it takes a half hour to 45 minutes. And he's not counting that as time used. So then he has this big long to-do list, which don't get me started on to-do lists. We can talk about that in a minute. Then he has this big long to-do list that he doesn't know why he's not achieving it. So what you really need to do is say, okay, here's my calendar. What am I going to do? What do I do every day? What do I have to do every day? What should I do every day? And then you fill it in on your calendar. But here's the part that you're talking about, the focus. You have to do one thing at a time. So you have to look at 9 a.m. and say, what do I do at 9 a.m.? And that does not mean in between all that you're answering emails, you're answering texts, you're what I call friendly distractions. But you have to do one thing at a time. And for most of us, that's going to seem like you're really not working hard enough. Like I can go faster, I can do more and all that stuff. But the mind, you can't actually multitask. You can context switch, you can have different thoughts and go, but that's kind of like running in different directions at the same time. But if you need to be able to focus, and in this day and age, what I would tell you is that means shutting up all your alerts, not having a chime come in when you get an email, putting your phone to the side. You have to focus on one thing at a time and say, I'm going to do this from 9 to 10. I will answer emails from 10 to 10:30. I will do this. So it's doing, and sounds so simple, but it's really the part that people struggle with. It's doing one thing at a time.
Yes, I think it's, the focus, doing one thing at a time. And I actually keep telling this, to my students, when they come and they say, there's so much of this, like, calm down, let's have a look at what you need to do, and then we'll dissect this and tackle one thing at a time. In this hour, what are you going to do? In this hour, what you're going to do? And you're slotting in specific tasks in each hour. And I think, with your book, you say win the hour, win the day. Is that what that means?
Absolutely. If you win the hour, you will win the day. So if you focus on, and it really does change your efficiency. Like at first, I really noticed when I started saying, okay, and I would set the timer so that I'm not even looking at my clock, because then you're always like, what time is it? Oh, I have another appointment. So I set my timer for everything. If I'm going to work on emails for half hour, the timer's, Siri, 30-minute timer, please. And that way it gives my full attention. I'm not even looking at the clock. And so you really do have to do one thing at a time.
Right. But some people do struggle with that because they get distracted so easily. So, do you have any tips on how you could do one thing at a time?
Well, it is much easier said than done, and it does take some practice. So what I would say is you have to break down what you're doing. And most of us come into a project with the enormity of it and say, okay, oh my gosh. And then like what happens is, let's say you're going to do some videos for, for Facebook. And you say, okay, over the next few weeks, let's take my example. Let's say, okay, I have a book launching, the book's launching this week, and I should be doing some live videos. I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And what happens is then you start adding to the list. And more often than not, you move away from the goal instead of toward the goal. So then you say, oh my gosh, well, let's be silly. Say, oh my gosh, I need a haircut. Oh, I need the videos edited, or I need to have script, or I need to have copy. What should I say? Do I have this ready? Do I have that ready? And all of a sudden you've got this big long list and it becomes so enormous and you just get so stressed out and you can't see clearly. It's like looking at a pile of something, anything. Walk into a teenager's bedroom and you see this pile of stuff and you're like, well, what's in that mess? I don't know. So really what you have to do is break down to the simplest thing that you can do right now and say, okay, what is the most basic part of this task and what can I do today? And then sort of build that out and say, all right, I'm going to do videos once a week on Facebook. And so then you say, well, here's the 5 things I need. And you put them on the calendar. And then that's it. I'm committed to that on the calendar. Your calendar has to be your Bible.
I'm so sorry for the phone ringing, Chris. Really do apologize about that. But yes, you're mentioning this focus, having one task at a time, dissecting the activities. Do you have any particular takeaways, for example, particular techniques that you'd like to share our viewers?
Sure, but I'd like to ask you a question for a second now. Did that not rattle you a little bit? Like now
Absolutely.
so now you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm sitting here and I'm trying to listen to Kriss and I'm trying to look straight ahead and I'm trying to make everyone think I don't know. And you're trying to fix the phone. And did you not feel stressed out there for a second?
Absolutely. And thank you for pointing that out because I did turn off my mobile, but I'm in my office and someone is calling me, probably wants to ask me a question or something, but
You're not answering your cell phone because you probably normally do.
yeah, but it's my office phone. It's like,
So
and
what I
I'm trying to listen to you, trying to turn it. I was like, no, 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 wait, stop it. But it's really distracting, and I know what you mean with when people say you cannot really multitask. They say women are good at multitasking. Well, men, women, does it really have to do with gender actually? But yeah, it diverts your attention. It uses your brain power.
yeah.
So I'm a complete believer in focusing on one task at a time, because when you try to multitask and juggle a couple of things, it's not that easy. So for
Some people
example, when some people, they might do something and eat at the same time, would you discourage that?
I do. I discourage a lot of things. Now, getting back to you for 1 second, I would say to you, systems are part of that. So as you do this more and more, what you might have is a little checklist and say, and you'll learn from that. You don't always get it the first time. As things grow, you'll add to the checklist. You'll say, okay, cell phone away, off, office phone off. And so what happens is then you have some things in automation, a little checklist, nothing crazy. We don't want to start creating all these complicated systems, but you'll say, okay, I'm going to go do another live webinar. Here's the 7 things I need to check. And that way you're not recycling information, because that's another thing we all do. We try to remember and recycle stuff. And so then your brain is not meant for remembering things. It's meant for creating things. And if you waste brain power trying to remember all that stuff in a panic, it's just like juggling. Something's going to get dropped and it's going to explode.
Yes, absolutely. We do have psychologists in the group, and one of them, Aggie, who just completed her PhD. This is one of her topics. It's about cognitive task switching. It's quite it takes quite a lot of brain power to switch from one task to the other. So you have to conserve that energy, and you focus on one task, one activity at a time. you're more concentrated, and I guess you'll have better quality outputs as a result of that.
You have better quality outputs, and mostly you will just be shocked when you start living this different lifestyle and focusing on one thing at a time. You'll be shocked at your productivity. You'll be shocked at the amount of stress you used to put on yourself. I mean, think of something. I'm sure we've all watched the Olympics at some time, and you think of those runners, and they're running as fast, and they're trained not even to just slightly turn their head to see who's coming. They don't even do that because it wastes their fuel, and it takes away from their focus, right? So, I mean, if they can't even, and that's all they do, run in a straight line, run in a straight line. They can't even turn their head slightly. Here we are, checking emails in between, waiting for something to download, and then, oh, we got text and we got all this stuff. We've got one brain, and the context switching really fatigues it, and it limits your productivity, your creativity, your focus, and your output. And more than anything, it's hugely stressful. So you really have to look at your calendar as your Bible. And most people don't even count emails as work. They're like, oh, I just do that as they come in, or I do that, first thing in the morning, which also is when your brain usually is freshest and you're most alert. And that's the last time you should be answering emails. Everyone thinks, oh, I have to answer them. What happens? Well, you know what? If you email someone that's, successful and running a really lucrative business, they are not answering your emails as they come in. They are not answering them first thing in the morning, because that just creates more work. What they do is they do the most important stuff first when they're freshest, and then usually they'll answer emails sometime in the morning, maybe like a 10:30, 11 for a half hour, and one other time in the afternoon. And it's really about where is your fuel most efficient. And we do that in our personal life. We know not to jump up and clean the house a half hour before we go to bed, but we don't look at our work life the same way. And really, your calendar is your Bible. So what's going to happen is you'll realize how much time you have, where you're most effective, where you're freshest. And that way you can get way more units of productivity and efficiency out of less time. Like I was working, well, me and all the clients I work with, I would easily say, on a good day, I would start around, on a good day, I'd start around 6 or 7. And if I was really lucky, I would stop around 10. And I did that for 2 years. On a bad day, I stopped at midnight and got up at 5. And now I can work between 6, sometimes 8 hours and get way more done than I used to, way more.
Right. So, would you recommend to start with the things that excite you first? Things that you're good at first thing in the morning, or because some people they say eat. What's the word that they use? Eat the frog, or first. You like do the most boring tasks first. And what works for you? What would you recommend in terms of having a routine?
Well, that's a great point. You know what? Part of that brings me back to your earlier question about eating at your desk. That's one of the things I firmly believe you shouldn't be doing, because, again, you're still multitasking, and you should have breaks. And when you are more efficient with your productivity and your fuel and stuff, you'll find that you do need a break because you work hard. You set the timer, and then you're like, oh, it changes your focus. If I've only got, like, sometimes you come into your office and you go, okay, I've got this big, long to-do list. And you think, okay, I've got all day to do it. But then you have no idea that the first thing took 3 hours and the second thing took 3 minutes, and you just have no way of mapping the day. But if you set your timer and you go, okay, from 9 to 10, I have to get this project done, you find that you really hustle, because you're like, I've got 1 hour, where thinking you have the day to do 3 things versus 1 hour to do one, it really changes your focus and your hustle. Like it really moves you along quicker, and it gives you a better sense of, oh, I thought that would take, it took an hour and I was only halfway done. So now it tells you I need 2 more hours. So then you can't fix what you can't measure. If you don't measure it, you can't fix it, right? And when you work that hard and when you are really focused like that, then what you'll find is, okay, I need to take a 10-minute break before I start my next, hour of focus. And that also comes in with eating and lunch and whatever. You need to pull away, because you'll find that you really are zoned in, you really are more efficient, and you should take a lunch break, and you shouldn't, because this is your machine. Your body is your machine, especially when you have a small business. If you get sick, it really causes havoc for you. So you really do need to treat it like a, well-oiled race car, and eating and taking care of yourself. I talk about that in the book as well. that successful people really value their health because they actually have really ambitious goals. So they want to be healthy well into their later years. So they really treat their body with respect, and that's not eating over a desk.
Right. So how does your typical day look like? Like how do you make your hour efficient? What does it look like?
Well, it sounds so simple, and I do recommend reading the book because I'm trying to, scrunch into this interview what's in the book, and there's really great examples in the book, and it sort of walks you through it. Because when you hear this in sort of snippets like this, it sounds really simple. You know what? Put on your calendar, stop multitasking, don't use to-do
Mhm.
lists. But what the feedback I've been getting from the book is all the other time management gurus out there give you new systems, and then you have to catalog stuff and reorganize it, and that's more work, and then you're already overwhelmed and stressed and you don't have time to do your own work, and now they're teaching you how to reorganize and do all this craziness with your work, whereas mine is really about simplifying everything. So
Mm.
I can tell you what my day looks like, but that's, I certainly get up, and to be honest, I exercise every morning, and then I set my day up, and I have lunch breaks and I have meetings, and I know when I'm most efficient. I'm most efficient in the morning. So I never do emails first thing in the morning. I work on
Mm.
things that require the most creativeness out of me, not the thing I dread the most, because we're still humans. And when you put that there, then you put in, oh, look, the printer broke. Oh, look, something happened, so that I don't have to deal with that. The frog I don't want to deal with. But I will tell you, when you manage your time differently and when you're far more productive, there are a lot less frogs to eat. I really don't have those dreaded chores that I used to have because
Mm.
everything is so much easier. So it sounds simple, but if you really can grasp one thing, it's if you stop today after this and you went to your calendar and you looked at tomorrow and you said, okay, what do I have to do tomorrow? And you started filling in blocks in your calendar. I bet you wouldn't be doing it very long when you went, oh my gosh, no wonder I wasn't getting stuff done. Like, I know it takes me an hour to do this. I know I do that every day and I have to. And all of a sudden you realize you really had 4 or 5 hours of time and you were scrunching like 12 hours of work into it, which wasn't working. So you left stressed out, and then you added it to the next day and it just compounded and compounded. So it's a very simple thing, but those time slots on your calendar are actual time. Your real life time, like your bank account. You can't go out and buy something as $10,000 if you only have $1,000 in your bank account. And we don't look at the calendar the same way.
Mm. And actually, this relates to the next question, actually, putting things in your calendar. So, what's your opinion about to-do lists? How do you feel about to-do lists?
Well, to-do lists are excellent if you're looking to be stressed out, frustrated, and have something constantly hanging over your head. So to-do lists, the endless studies to show that all you do is recycle them in your mind, and they stress you out, and you get up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and you realize, oh, I didn't add that to my list. But the biggest crime about to-do lists, and you will never hear a successful person talk about that. If you listen to industry leaders or read a book or anyone that sort of made some, big accomplishment in their life, in their area of business, they do not talk about to-do lists because they don't measure time. So you don't know in that to-do list with 10 things on it if half those things take 3 minutes or if they take 4 hours each. You don't know. They don't prioritize. You often cherry pick and go in and grab the first few things and feel really good. I did 3 things off my to-do list. They weren't important stuff and they only took 2 minutes. And then it's just a growing list, but it doesn't reflect time. And so you can't measure. It's like going into a store, really, and let's say you went into a furniture store and everything had no price on it, you don't know how much it's going to drain from you. Like, okay, I love
Mm.
this couch. Is it a $60 couch or a $6,000 couch? I don't know. Let's get to the cash and see what happens, right? There's no measurement there, and that's what to-do lists will cripple you. And they also, as the lists get longer, things get buried in it. And there's no, once I get this thing done, okay, the next step is. So there's no linking of the importance of these 2 steps have to go together. So to-do lists are really just to create stress and
Mm.
havoc in your business.
So, what's the alternative if you if we have no to-do lists, what's the alternative to keep track of what you need to do?
Well, you need to put it on your calendar. That's where your time is. So the biggest mistake most people make is, if you have an outside appointment, let's say you're going to meet with a potential client and they're interested in, your service, and they're like, oh, this could really bring some money in to my company, or a dentist appointment, or anything you value, you put that on your calendar. You will make sure you get to that. But then you don't put your own work on your calendar. So if you have to-do lists, what's on that to-do list? And then you have to figure out, okay, the to-do list is maybe prepare for this interview. Okay, I need questions. I need to make sure I show up at the right time. So it's got to go on the calendar. So today you're allotted this time for this interview. Yesterday I may have said, okay, let's review some things we're going to focus on the interview. What do I need for that interview? What can I offer the group? Stuff like that. So that gave me an hour of focusing on that. So if that was on a to-do list, then it might not have, I might have panicked this morning, say, oh my gosh, I meant to do that. I've got that interview this morning, and it wasn't on the calendar. It's on my to-do list, but it had no date or time attached to it. Yesterday could have got busy, and all of a sudden I didn't get to prepare for this interview because I didn't have it in a time slot. I had it on a list, and it got moved down the list. So really, we all run everything that's important by time. You make sure you get your kids at school on time. You pick them up on time. So if you want anything done that's important to your life or your business, it has to be attached to time.
Yeah. So you put them in the calendar and attach it to a particular hour and get it done in that hour.
Yes. If you win the hour, you win the day. Everything will come from that. It's just focusing on the hour. And then at the end of that hour, if you have more work to do on that subject, then you put it, okay, great. Oh my gosh, I worked so hard for an hour and I still have a lot to do. Okay, great. Then I need another hour. I need 2 more hours. But at least now you have a realistic expectation of when that will be completed, because you cannot improve what you don't measure. And you also can't grow your business. You can't train new people or bring in new staff if you can't manage your time. How are you going to manage somebody else's time and grow your business or do anything? You can't replicate or leverage what you do when you don't know how long it takes to do anything.
Fantastic. So yes, I think that's the key takeaway message for today. It's, win the hour, win the day.
Yes, yes.
And it's all the techniques are in your book, right, Kris?
Yeah. And you know what? This week, the timing is excellent. I mean, I'm a big fan of you. You certainly know what you're doing. So I'm not sure if your group knows. I'm sure they've caught on by now how smart and bright and how useful you are to have in their corner. And again, your timing is impeccable, because this week, this is the launch week. So we've got a free promo on this week. So this would be the time to grab the book and get it for free. You obviously got nothing to lose. And of course, if you take me up on that, I cannot tell you how much we appreciate reviews, because not only does Amazon love reviews, but I'm working on the second book. So, any feedback, your questions, or things you want to ask me, this is a great time, because then we can get that in the second book. But it sounds simple, but it is simple, because what happens and what people keep telling me is when they read the book, it's stuff you can do today. You don't need to clear your calendar and say, okay, I need a week to get reorganized. That's another thing. You don't have to be organized to do this. In fact, I've worked with a lot of people who were not organized, and I think that served them better, because then they weren't reorganizing stuff and reshuffling. They weren't, because organized people don't change their framework. They just keep reorganizing. So I would take a look at the book, because concepts are simple. You can do them today. What you're going to love is it's not some big system that you have to implement and change how you think. It's going to see how you deal with your time, and it's going to show you, because it gives you the version of the struggler and it gives you the version of the successful person, and it's going to show you how easy it is to get from one to the other. And all I can promise you is you will notice relief, and the more you implement it, the easier it will get, the more fun you'll have doing what you do, because the stress will be gone, and you'll become more creative and more productive.
Yes, and I've seen your book. I've read your book, Kris. That's why I invited you here, because I think a lot of people in this group will actually benefit from reading your book. And it's available on Amazon, and it's absolutely free today. So download your copy today. It's called Win the Hour, Win the Day. And I couldn't recommend it highly enough, Kris. I've read many books, in our group, and your book is really so efficient. I have to say, well, this is what you do, efficiency and productivity, but it is so clear, it is so well structured, so easy to read. And the techniques that you suggest in the book are so easy to implement, I have to say, because it's so simple. It's just win the hour, win the day, just focus on one task at a time and put them in your calendar.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the feedback I've been getting from a lot of people, is that it is refreshing and it makes them see things differently. So, you know, I obviously worked hard in the book, and I will tell you that making a book easy to read and simple is really hard to do. It takes some time. So I'm really excited about, because you know what, you shouldn't have to work this hard. And then we're taught that that's part of your character and that makes you desirable. It's like, look how hard I'm working, and it doesn't need to be like that. And you'll notice that really successful people don't brag about how hard they're working, not only because they're not that hard, but they know that that's not where your value comes from. So I really just want people to get back to enjoying what they do and seeing the results and building the results on top of more results. So it really, I know what it was like for the people I worked with that I helped, and for myself, it's just, life doesn't have to be this stressful. And with all the technology coming at us, promising us new things, there's, it's always like, oh, if I get this app, and if I do this, and if this chimes every hour, I can drink a glass of water, and you're just stressed out. So I do urge them to read it, just because I think everyone should have an easier day, and therefore an easier hour, and just win the hour, win the day. And I promise you, I do believe you'll get something out of it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kris. Before we sign off, we have a couple of viewers right now. Do you have any questions? I couldn't see who's viewing us because of some Facebook confidentiality thing, so I don't know who they are. But to our viewers who are watching right now, do you have any questions for Kris before we sign off? Let's give them a minute. But yeah, if people do get your book, I would encourage them to, yeah, leave a review. It's really important for authors and for future readers as well. When people leave reviews on Amazon, people could download it for free today, leave a review, and we all learn together.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think there are any questions. I think people can watch this in their own time. This will be on replay, and they can post their comments in a future date. But thanks again, Kris, for spending this time with us. And yes, to everybody out there, yeah, grab Kris's book. I couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Well, thank you, Emmy. It was absolutely a pleasure I'm just so thrilled. This is the start of my podcast webinar journey was with you, because you are a firecracker and certainly a bright light and really good at what you do. So this was an amazing start to the beginning of my journey with the book.
Well, this is the first interview in the PAME Code Facebook group as well, so it's great having you today. So thanks, Kris, and we'll have a fantastic day. You are in Canada, right?
I am.
Yeah, so the sun is shining there. Start of the day, we're afternoon now, and I think some of our viewers in the Philippines, there is time for bed. But thanks for joining us, and good luck on your launch week.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye for now. Bye.